to do it that way. So those are some of the things that we've learned in the process of rolling this out. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was there's been some concern that teachers would have to develop these huge portfolios of documentation, and that is not the case. Only if the principal doesn't see it in the observation does the teacher have to provide documentation. However, the teacher can provide at any time any documentation they would like, and the principal can add to the teacher's evaluation portfolio, if you want to call it that, electronic portfolio, any documentation the principal wants to add to that. And let's see what else I had down here. And the survey not being a standalone, when we first started this process, the surveys were counted as 10%, had a weight of 10%. But now that's just one thing that the principal uses to determine how the teachers will rate on the standards. Yes. Every walkthrough has to be documented in the electronic platform. The HR person can see it, the superintendent can see it, the State Department can see it. So if you don't do them, everybody's going to know. But I would caution districts to give principals a timeline. You know, you can have the greatest plans as a principal that today I'm going to evaluate 3 teachers, and you walk in the door and you don't get any of that done. So as a district, I would say to principals, in the first semester you do one 30-minute and 2 walkthroughs, and in the second semester you do 1 observation and 2 walkthroughs. You know, some guidance. And of course, principals have to plan their time to do that, and some days the best laid plans are going to go by the wayside because of things that happen in schools.
Well, is his team going to have to do that, because that's not enough time?
Yes, his assistant principals.
Responsibility for him to do all of it.
Assistant principals can certainly help, and whoever is in that school that is a credentialed evaluator will be able to assist too.
I would think that they'd have to record it, and that way you got a balance check there.
Yes, you're right. And I think there was a question accountable for that. I mean, that's the board's role, is to hold the superintendent accountable. The superintendent's accountable for the administrators in the district. I've developed a chart, and I meant to bring it, and now that you've said that, I wish I had, but it says, as teachers, principals, superintendents, and board members go from the knowledge of this to the leadership, these are the behaviors you will see. And I will make sure that GSBA gets that and shares that with you about what is my role as a board member in making sure this is happening. What is my role as a superintendent? What is my role as a principal? What is my role as a teacher? To move from just knowledge all the way to leadership. And it just gives you some ideas about that. But principals do know, good principals do know which teachers are effective. They know it for a whole lot of reasons. Number one, because of their own professional practice, and because most good principals were good teachers and they know what to look for. But in a district, you can decide, is this going to be 2 unannounced, 2 announced, 1 of each? You know, you can make that determination as a district, or you can allow your principals to make that determination by school. That's going to be totally a district decision. And as a board member, that's what you would ask your superintendent. What is the decision going to be? And as a former superintendent, I think that's the superintendent's call, not a board member's call, but you certainly want to be informed, and you certainly want to express your opinion about that. But that role of observed and unobserved, and then you have those test scores, it is not achievement, it is growth. So your example of, I don't like this teacher, so I'm giving them all of these difficult to teach students. But the measure will be on how far did that teacher take those students, whether they are gifted or whether they are down here, very, very low academically. What we are looking at is student growth, not an absolute bar, which is the way the old AYP was set up.
Is it individual student growth?
Yeah. Individual student growth, and it's aggregated, of course, but we're looking at individual student growth.
In subjects that are tested that we are typically familiar with, the CRCT and the end of course test. But then there are a lot of teachers that are in non-tested subjects. And what we're looking at is student growth. We're looking at the very beginning of the year. We are assessing our students. We're looking at where they are when they walk into our classrooms. And then what we are doing is we are looking to see how much growth at the end of the year those students achieve Bottom line, that's what it is. And with our tested subjects, we're using instruments currently like the CRCT and the end of course test. But with our non-tested, we're using our student learning objectives, where we have a pre-test at the beginning of the year and a post-test at the end. If it is a semester course, then we're looking at the beginning of the year and then the end of that course. If we're looking at a 9-week course, which sometimes occurs in our middle schools, we're looking at the same thing. Beginning of the course and the end of the course. The SLOs are attached to the course, okay? I want to explain it this way, and if y'all don't mind, I have 2 grandchildren. I wish we had 2 hours more and I could tell you all about them. But one of the things I want to explain to you about with growth, think about growth charts. We have a growth chart for our grandchildren, and those growth charts, every time our grandchildren come to visit us, we mark that on the growth chart. And Madeline, who is our granddaughter, she doesn't back up to Henry's growth chart because that's not her measure. That's Henry's, because we're looking at where Henry was at the beginning of the year and then where he is when he comes to visit us. And y'all, when my mother moved and we sold her house after almost 30 years in that house, guess what the hardest thing to say goodbye to was that little growth chart that we had on our children, because we were able to see the progress. And y'all, that's really what it is. That's why we get so attached to things like that, is because we are just getting so much joy in that growth that we are seeing from our children. That's basically what it is. Now, I want to show you. Yes, ma'am?
She is terminated. Is that true?
No.
This is out there,
But
folks.
you can't do it.
No,
That's the end of it.
Listen, there's one word that's being left out of that. 2 out of 5 years unremediated. The teacher will have an opportunity to remediate that ineffective. If they correct that behavior or whatever that is, then it's 2 years of unremediated. Okay?
So there is a
Unremediated.
remediation for a teacher.
Oh, absolutely.
And there will be a professional development plan, just like we have now. The teacher completes it to the administrator's satisfaction, then that one doesn't count.
Is it just ineffective, or is it also?
Needs development or ineffective.
So it's needs development or.
Overall now.
Overall.
Not just one piece of it. Yes.
I still say that the person that is going to come and evaluate the teacher on this should know the curriculum. If they don't know it, how are they gonna see the 10 things that they're supposed to see?
Well, let me just tell you this. I'm an old principal. I see Dan Trotter in the back of the room. He's an old principal. There's superintendents in here. They're old principal. Old is the operative word for all of us.
Wait a minute.
I can tell you right now, from our experience collectively, I am not a physics teacher, but I can walk in a physics teacher's classroom and I can tell you if effective teaching is taking place.
Good teaching is good teaching. Well, I taught 42 years, and I am telling you that in elementary school, we've got PE teachers and coaches that are principals.
Shame on your superintendent.
Well, my superintendent didn't do it. It was the one before that.
Well, then now they're
You
going to
know.
have an instrument to get rid of.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, Pam, let's get back to it. This is good conversation.
Sheet to go out on the state, because there's a lot of stuff out there. Teachers are panicking.
They'll calm down after they have the training. We've seen it all over.
That's why we're doing a pilot.
That's why we're doing a pilot.